The Tiger King.
Woo!
Madness, Mayhem, and Murder. Is that what it's called? Or is it Murder, Mayhem, and Madness? I think it's Madness, Mayhem, and Murder.
Words.
Yeah, some combination of those three things. So
Murder, Mayhem, and Madness.
There we go. I got it right.
Yeah.
I knew Mayhem was in the middle. Anyway.
They're in reverse alphabetical order.
Yes.
There we go. That's how you remember. Anyway,
The Tiger King. This series is fantastic. I want to say it's so good because of how unbelievably mental it is. And it's crazy. So it's about the big cat owners and exhibitionists in America, North America, focusing mainly on Joe Exotic, who owns a zoo with I think it's 227 big cats.
Yeah, it was something. It was only over 200 or so.
Yeah. And he's called the Tiger King because he owns, a stupid amount of tigers. Because he, and it's about basically
more tigers than any one man should have.
Yeah, and it's about him, but it's also by extension about the other big cat people in America. Because there's quite a few of these big zoos, and they're all really weird people. Yeah. But then more because there's so much to it. There's 7 episodes.
It's the kind of show that just gets weirder and weirder the more you watch of it.
It's just completely mad. So it's also about Carol Baskin, because she owns she calls it a big cat sanctuary, but she's dodgy as well.
Oh.
Anyway, but we'll
okay.
get onto it.
Well, I've got words to say about Carol Baskin, as I'm sure most people do.
Yeah. But yeah, she... it's about basically Joe Exotic's trial as well. Because he's in prison. Which isn't a spoiler, because it's real life.
And also, it's shown in the first episode.
Yes.
So you sort of know... It's one of those great things where you know eventually where it's heading. It's trying to piece together how he ended up there. Then by episode 4, you're like, I can see how he ended up in prison.
Yeah. He is insane. He's absolutely mad. Well, so there's the recommendation. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it, because it's really, really good. It's absolutely mad. Very, very entertaining.
It's one of those documentaries where, reality is stranger than fiction kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just gets so bizarre and sort of spirals out of control in just a very crazy way. But it's one of those things where you can imagine, it's so crazy, and yet we'd never know about it unless this documentary was made.
Yeah.
And you sort of wonder if the documentarians knew what they were getting themselves in for when they started it.
Yeah. It's just mad. But yeah, there's the recommendation, because now I want to talk about a lot of it, so going to give a big spoiler warning.
Okay, how much are you going to do? Because I've only done the first 4 episodes.
Right. Well, mostly what I want to talk about is how they make the series, and there is a couple of bits that might be spoilery. Okay, I won't talk about as much as I want to. Maybe we can do a spoiler corner on it next week.
Yeah, okay. So this will be a general rambles for now.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll avoid the spoilery bits. But I mostly just want to talk about how they make it. Because one thing that's particularly excellent about this documentary is how very good they are at manipulating your emotions.
Right.
The makers of documentary are, I think, just brilliant at showing you the exact right clips, playing the right, music, putting things in the right order to make you think a very certain way. And I think they are masterful at that. Basically, as the way they film it, how many different techniques they use, because they use every single technique of making a documentary I've ever seen before. It's crazy. So normally for a documentary, there are things called documentary modes.
Yes. I remember these well.
You may remember.
Well, I remember some of them well.
Which is basically sort of the 6 different, the modes of like that you can sort of fit documentaries into.
They're sort of the genres of documentary in a way, aren't they?
Yeah. So, but this one, the Tiger King somehow fits into almost every single mode of making it. So it's amazing how they managed to do it, I think. Just because it's just very, very good documentary making, if that's what you think of it. So there's a big argument when you talk about a documentary is you need to talk about the truth. Right?
There's sort of perceived objectivity to documentaries, which is entirely fallacy.
Yeah. No documentary can be 100% objectively true. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
You can't. It can't happen.
Just that's the nature of documentation in the first place, is, choosing what to focus on,
But then, so what some documentaries try to do is be as truthful as possible. So, for example, if we look at Ciné,
yes,
by Astropedia, which is another brilliant documentary.
One of my all-time favourite films. So
what Astropedia does, his attempt to get to the closest to the truth is he only uses archive footage.
With no voiceovers or anything else shot specifically for it. It's all,
all archive footage. He went through thousands of hours of Ayrton Senna's life, basically, and stitched it together to make this documentary. So that's a good way of getting to the truth, because he didn't have to fabricate anything. He chose stuff that already existed and put it together. But then the argument there is he chose what order they went in. He chose what to show and what not to show. So it still isn't objectively the truth.
And in Senna, there's this sort of construction of Alain Prost as this sort of like bitter rival, when in real life they probably weren't as against each other as the documentary has shown them to be. So it's picking and choosing to make an effective antagonist for the story.
Yeah.
Which is basically the same principle for all documentaries, essentially.
Yes, yeah. Whereas this uses... so to give another example on top of that, Michael Moore, he makes documentaries all the time. So Fahrenheit 9/11, Bowling for Columbine, he's made loads of documentaries. He's very, infamous and famous for making them.
And being quite... provoking with them as well, and deliberately sort of trying to provoke responses from the people he's making documentaries on. So what a lot of people argue that his version of documentary making is quite far away from the truth, because he's so subjective.
Provoking. He's so subjective,
because he's very much like the presenter of documentaries, and he sort of narrates them, and he sort of very much shows it from how he sees it.
Exactly, yeah. He's very, very much a key figure in his documentaries, because you see him asking all the questions. The other thing is you get a lot of reverse shots of him then asking the questions, and it's like they obviously had time. They've only got one camera, and they had time to set up the shot to ask the guy the question, and then have another time to then do the reverse shot. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a very famous interview with Charlton Heston.
Yes.
Charlton Heston, yeah.
Of Planet of the Apes fame.
Yeah. Because he's a big gun man, whatever.
Is he the president of the NRA, or was he just a big supporter of it?
I think he was a big supporter. I don't know if he was president, but he was big involved. Anyway, Michael Moore. So the camera's pointed at Charlton Heston. Michael Moore saying, "Oh, look at this picture of this girl. She got killed in, a school shooting or whatever, and the NRA did nothing or whatever. And it's, this is meant to be the climax of the film." And then Charlton Heston's basically, get out of my house. And it's like, that's fine. But then they show, obviously they didn't leave straight away, because they have time to do the reverse shot of Michael Moore, holding up the photo and waving it at his face. Like, if that was real or live or whatever, and Charlton Heston's like, "Get the fuck out of my house,"
there wouldn't be a reverse shot. They would have had to just go.
Yeah,
He wouldn't have stayed around to be like, yeah, all right, I'll help you do the other side.
But the Tiger King uses so many of these techniques. So the documentarian, I can't remember his name, but he's in it.
Yeah.
Not frequently, but
no, he's there. So I remember in the first episode he's there a couple of times when he seems to sort of take more of a backseat as it goes on. It seems.
But he definitely comes back towards the end as well, because there's a lot of it where you see him asking the questions. You get a lot of the documentarian on the phone talking to someone. You get a lot of him behind the camera, but still asking questions very audibly, and him holding the camera, pointing at things. You can see his hands and stuff. It's like that's interesting, because he's obviously very much there, very much manipulating the scene to be what he wants to show.
Yeah.
The other thing is there is no given time frame for when it's filmed.
No, I remember there was a vague mention of like, I think they started it 5 years ago or something. Because I know there was because he's in prison now, and there was an idea that was 4 years or so after when like the rest of the documentary was filmed or something, as I recall.
But then that makes me think, like, if they've been filming for that long, they must have, and they do have, like a lot of video evidence of them, of Joe Exotic and all the others committing the crimes that they do, and it's like, surely if you have that on file, you just show that or whatever, you do something with that.
Well, I mean, they put it out on Netflix where everyone's seen it, so in some way they have done. It's sort of brought it to light.
There's a big part of it's. This is, I don't know what part this is in. I don't want to spoil it, so I won't say that bit. Okay. But there's a big bit that's really made me think. Well, hold on a second, because this person said this, and they've given it as a conviction of being absolutely true, but you've shown things previously in the documentary that shows he's not true.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you trying to make this man? Obviously, they want this man. They're trying to show him in a positive light, but then they've literally showed footage before that shows that, this thing that this man has said is wrong, and it's like, well, that's the other thing. Like the I don't want to say the side the documentary is on. What angle it's going for, constantly changing, I think.
Well, it seems for the most part like it's trying to support. Well, it seems, to me at least, the documentary seems it's more or less. I don't know if this changes in the last couple of episodes, but it seems to be more or less on Joe Exotic's sort of side, and against Carol Baskin. But it does sort of start to shift away from that. You say, or you reckon it's more on Carol Baskin's side then, or just no one's side?
I think it's on no one's side. I think it's an expose trying to show that the whole world of these exotic cat owners is crazy, including Carol Baskin, because it does sort of align you with Joe Exotic, but then I think it's almost satirical in a way.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's showing how fucking messed up he is and how crazy he is and how weird he is. Especially that bit. Don't know if you've seen this yet, but it's like, oh yeah, he really loves guns, and there's a bit of him Joe Exotic with a drawn gun that's loaded, pointing at the cameraman.
Yes, I do remember that bit.
Walks straight up to the cameraman, fires a bullet like right next to his head, and it's like, oh my god, this man is insane.
Well, that's the thing. 'Cause on the bit I've done, there's the whole thing with him deliberately infringing copyright of Carol Baskin's place to sort of make a point, and then he gets stuck in like millions of pounds of legal fees, and it's sort of ruining him. And like at that point, at least, it feels like while this documentary started more or less on sort of Joe Exotic's side, by this point we're sort of starting to drift away, and it's like, no, look, he's an idiot and also insane. Like it's starting to detach more from him. In the same way as I was sort of writing about with Joker and how it sort of starts on his side and then starts to gravitate away from him and look at him from a more sort of distance. I think Tiger King is doing something similar. Again, I'm not quite sure how it ends, but I'm imagining it sort of continues on that trajectory.
See, it's interesting because I don't know whether it's just Joe Exotic, but he's very hard not to find feel like sorry for him.
Yeah, I think the thing is he's just a very charismatic character is the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's very charismatic, and I don't know, he gets really wound up very quickly, and he ruins his life basically.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know.
He sort of lets his temper get the best of him and sort of his pettiness. Yeah.
But then is that what they want you to think? Because at the end of the day, he is in jail for his crimes. Like, he's not a good person. It's like, but then, I don't know. It feels weird. They bring up some really interesting points because it gets you to think a very certain way, and then it will twist it suddenly and get you to think the opposite way, you know?
Right,
I think that was very interesting, especially with Carol Baskin.
I was gonna say with the
yeah, go on.
With the because in the second episode towards the end, it's sort of talking about Carol and like it's like, oh yeah, she's done some things, she's done all this, and then oh yeah, and she probably killed her husband. And it's like, sorry, what? And then it's like, yeah, she definitely probably killed her husband. And then the episode just sort of ends. It's like, oh, that's it brings it up so suddenly. And the next episode is entirely about this whole conspiracy that she's killed her husband and fed him to the tigers or put him in the septic tank. And like this is just a subplot of the series as well. And it's like such a big sort of like such a shocking moment. But the way it's introduced is so sort of like offhand.
Yes. But there's so many little subplots about this that weren't necessary. Like, so much of it hasn't got anything to do with Joe Exotic.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole episode dedicated to Carol Baskin. There's a whole episode dedicated to John Lowe.
Yeah.
You know, of these other things that have gone on. There's episodes dedicated to, you know, but completely different things that have nothing to do with the actual story. I think they only are there to change your mind about certain people.
Right. Okay, that's an interesting idea.
Because the whole Carol Baskin thing, in the first episode, she is fully presented, I think, to be the good guy, and you're like, oh, okay, that's obviously the protagonist, and Joe Exotic's going to be the antagonist. But then I think it's the third episode that is about her missing husband case. Like, that serves entirely to show her in a completely new perspective, you know?
See, that's interesting, because I never liked Carol Baskin, and like from the beginning, she felt like the antagonist. But I don't know if that's just because there's this because the whole thing about protagonist and antagonist is there's this thing in Greek theatre where it all started, like protagonist was the first person on stage kind of thing, and the antagonist was the second person under the stage. So like in that principle, I was like, I naturally thought, okay, Joe Exotic's the first person we see, he's our protagonist, and then his rival is Carol's, who's going to be the antagonist. So I don't know if it's just simply like the order they were introduced, but I never felt in any way that Carol was like a good person, you know, and like the protagonist.
I feel like she is, because well, in the first episode at least, this gets a bit more dicey the further you go on. But I feel like the way she's introduced, because, you know, she has the big cat sanctuary, and she's dedicated her entire life to trying to save big cats, and she's trying to pass these laws that's gonna, you know, ban abuse of animals, basically.
Well, see, this is the thing that that really sort of like, well, not triggered me, but like I found really bizarre and sort of infuriating about her character was she was like, oh yes, I've got this sanctuary for cats, and I save all the big cats from these other awful zoos which lock up the cats in cages and make visitors interact with them. No, I take all these cats and put them in my sanctuary and put them in cages where visitors can look at them. It's like, okay, well that means your sanctuary is exactly the same as every other person's zoo, except your cages are smaller. Like, there's no attempt to rehabilitate them or stop them. You're just building a rival sanctuary under the guise of it's a sanctuary and it's caring. That's why I didn't like it. That's why I don't think she's a protagonist. She's just as bad as the others, but she's manipulative about it.
Yeah, that's what. But she is always under the guise of doing good work, you know.
But that's why I think she's worse. Like, Joe Exotic's like, no, okay, this is my tiger, not farm. Zoo. This is my zoo. You know, I'm very open about here's my tigers, I like them, but like I use them as my business, and that's my income, and he's very open about that. While Carol tries to pretend she cares about the animals, but she, you know, she's doing exactly the same thing and she's a hypocrite for it. And that's why I was at no point on her side. Because that's introduced quite early on, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you
other
did it
thing
the other way.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's all up to interpretation.
Exactly. Like all great art is.
I feel like I don't know, she is a better person. I think she is really dodgy. Because there's a whole bit about, so there's the other guy, I think his name's Don. I can't remember. He's got a white beard and like a cowboy hat or whatever. He's a really creepy dude.
Right.
He's got, like 3 wives or something.
Yeah.
He was so weird, but you could tell he was brilliant in front of the camera. But you could tell he was very, very used to being interviewed and owning the interview, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, he was sort of very comfortable with the sort of in his own skin and with being on camera and stuff. Yeah, that's sort of.
Also, he knows what makes a good shot, and he was like, "Oh, do you want a shot of me watching this interview, and then I can turn to the camera and react to it?"
Yeah,
and even the very first time he's introduced, he's like, "Oh, okay, do you want me to go back indoors and come welcome you into my home?" And they were like, "Yeah, that'd be great." It's like he is straight away.
He's a showman.
He's a showman, but he's also manipulating people to make himself look like a good person.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. Like, and he does it brilliantly, I think.
And the documentary exposes that he is doing it. Yeah.
So I remember what I was going to.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to talk about how much they pay their employees.
Right.
So it's like that guy who's called Don. I can't remember. He pays his employees $100 a week, and they are doing 12, 14-hour days every single day. They don't get
crazy,
a day off.
Yeah.
Like that. We worked it out, and it's roughly like $1 an hour.
It's not sub minimum wage.
And then, well, yeah, I mean it must be, but
yeah,
I don't know. Obviously, they're getting away with it.
Yeah.
And Joe Exotic was paying his people $150 a week, and you're like, oh my god, that's terrible. Which works out to about like $1.30 an hour or something like that. It's like, oh, that's slightly better than this other guy, but that's still terrible.
That's still way too low.
Yeah. But then it cuts to Carol Baskin. Carol Baskin's like, oh yeah, all of our employees are volunteers.
Yeah.
And it's
so I don't have to pay them anything.
Well, hold on. Yeah, exactly. You don't pay them anything. All they get is a different coloured shirt. And that really made me look differently at her. Because it's like, Joe Exotic was like, oh yeah, I pay them $150 a week because that's all I can afford to pay them. And he employs like ex-cons and homeless people off the street. He's like, do you want to, I'll give you a job and I'll give you somewhere to live. I was like, that's actually a really nice thing for him to do.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like cheap labour for him, but that's still an inherently a good thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's that scene of him, he goes up to a homeless woman at a gas station. He was like, do you want a job? And she's like, yes. And he's like, do you want somewhere to live? She's like, yeah. And he's like, cool, come with me. It's like, that's, I mean...
That would not work in most people, surely.
No, but that is still a nice thing to do, isn't it? Whereas Carol Baskin's like, works volunteers only, works them just as hard.
Yeah.
And it's like
volunteering for 12-hour days.
Top ranking, yeah, but if you want to be a top-ranking volunteer, the blue shirts or whatever they were, it's like, oh yeah, you've got to have at least 2 years here and like 1,000 hours or something stupid like that. It's like, how can you expect someone to dedicate their entire life to you and not pay them anything?
Yeah.
And that's just...
So, because then she's got the thing about like, oh, I'm doing good, it's a sanctuary and it's all la-di-da-di-da, and therefore it's like, oh, so I can get away with volunteering because it's like not for profit, even though it almost certainly is for profit.
Well, it is for profit because she lives in a bloody mansion.
Exactly. It's just, that's why the whole thing about like, oh, it's a sanctuary, I'm caring for them annoys me so much because like, it clearly isn't.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, then turning that around to Joey Essex.
Joey Essex? When did he get involved in the documentary? I haven't got to that bit yet.
Joe Exotic. Christ. Joe Exotic.
Yeah.
He also lives in a mansion, but makes his employees live on like terrible mobile homes.
Yeah. But again, at least he's sort of
And
upfront
he
about it in a
makes
way.
old Walmart meat, you know.
Yeah, but I thought the thing about the sort of off meat from Walmart and stuff was actually like really good, because obviously there's a lot of food wastage in that industry, and like he's right, a lot of it is perfectly good. So why not use it? You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, like that
Yeah.
to me paints him as like a good person in a way.
So, I mean, yeah. I think we should also point out that he is not a good person.
Oh no, no one in this
He is
documentary.
a bad person.
Yeah, everyone in the documentary to some degree is not good. And because within world documentary, certain people rise up as being better than others, even though truly they are all in their own cesspit.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a very poignant moment in the last episode.
Okay.
Where it's sort of, it's finished the whole thing, and it gives its sort of final statement.
Right. Well, I don't want to ruin it. I'll finish the series. I'll finish over the weekend, and we'll have a spoiler corner about it next week, and we'll discuss some other moments as well. Yeah.
Just because there's some really, really good bits in there, but for the other documentary things, like there's some fly on the wall bits where they've just set up a camera somewhere and they are recording stuff.
Mm.
But there's also loads of talking heads. And those other things, it's so manipulative because you have no idea when they filmed, how long they filmed for.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Sometimes you don't know where they are.
Because this potential 5-year span, they could have been like moving along, around the timeline, and we don't really know when or where that's happening. Yeah.
Well, there's a interesting bit I noticed in the later episodes. They have an interview with I think she's a news reporter, and she was like the sole reporter for the Joe Exotic court case. But where they've set her up for her talking head, there's a clock in the background.
Okay.
And you can see how they have, during this interview, the way they've cut it together. I was just watching the clock because it's obviously
like in The Simpsons.
They've taken a bit from. Well, they've taken a bit from 15 minutes earlier and stitched it onto this bit she's just said like 50 minutes later and made it one flowing bit to manipulate what she's actually said into saying what they want her to say, if you know what I mean.
That's interesting, because the fact that they left the clock in, that seems like such a rookie mistake. I wonder maybe is that a deliberate sort of, to point to the construction of it all.
I mean, possibly. I don't know.
Or is that too meta for this documentary?
That makes me want to think, like, they must have done that so much, so frequently, and so often throughout the whole documentary. It's like, how much of this can be relied on?
You think they'd at least...
another thing...
I was going to say, do you think they'd at least, like, blur out the clock and, like, do a sort of a vignette of some kind? If they're... Like, that seems like such a strange thing to leave in.
Yeah.
Like, such a glaring...
I don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is they interview this man a lot. He's got no legs, if you remember him.
Yes, I do remember him, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name.
They interview him a lot. But if you notice, he is interviewed, and he's interviewed in 3 different locations.
Right.
But they will have an interview with him, or they'll have an insert of him, and then they'll show a clip, and they'll have an insert from him, and he's in a different location. And it's like, okay, they've obviously gone back to him and said, we want you to talk about this specifically, please, because your last interview wasn't manipulative enough. Or,
yeah, you didn't say what we wanted you to say in that interview, yeah.
But it definitely feels like that because of how much... And there's another man called James Garrison. I don't know if you've met him yet.
I couldn't tell you from the name. I'm very bad of names.
Yeah, he's interviewed in like 4 or 5 different places. They've even got some like undercovers. Obviously, the camera is hidden, and they're interviewing anyway. It's like they've just put that together wherever they want, and it could mean anything. They've manipulated it so well into their narrative.
Yeah,
I think you've just got to be very wary of that, especially when watching this. Anyway, we talked about Tiger King for absolutely ages.
Yeah.
Should we? We'll come back to it because
Yeah, there's
there
definitely
was
more
so
to talk
much
about.
excellent stuff there.
So yeah, spoiler corner, Tiger King.
Okay.
What you got to say, Andrew?
Well, also we should raise that between last week and this week, the after show was released as well, which is
Oh yes,
an additional episode, which is basically a follow up, and in my opinion, almost entirely useless.
yeah, completely superfluous. I felt it seemed very fanboyish the way it was made.
Yes, I think
Like
that.
I was hoping for basically the original documentarians to be interviewing the people and asking follow up questions.
Yeah, I wanted
You
that
know,
as well
to clarify stuff.
because
But
also
what basically it was the guy from Community going, "Hey, did you know you're a meme now?" Yeah, isn't that funny? Sure. It's basically that for 40 minutes.
yeah. Also, well,
Doesn't
there was
help that I
a
don't
lot-
like the guy from Community anyway.
Well, yeah. I haven't seen Community, so I wouldn't know.
Like I was saying to you, I really didn't like Community, and I thought that's going to get very controversial. But I couldn't stand it past 3 episodes, and part of the reason is because the guy who's doing interviews in Tiger King, he's the main character, and he's an asshole, but not a fun asshole, just a misogynistic asshole who's not funny. I don't know why if he's supposed to be funny, but he's a dick, and not in the fun Archer way, just in a dick way.
Right.
Don't like Community. Anyway, let's get on Tiger King.
Okay. We should do a section on arsehole characters, though.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting, like, how to distinguish what makes a good one. Okay, for another time we'll do that.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so picking up from where we left off last week, we were talking about how the documentarians manipulate you to feel certain things.
Yes.
I also we will raise a big thing we didn't really talk about that much last time was the animal abuse part of it. And how aware of that we should be, and our our opinions on that and what we think the show does for it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of the ending then, of the last episode, and its conclusion and such?
Well, so I mean, basically the end of it is that because Joe Exotic makes these threats against Carol's life constantly, and he basically ends up going to pay a hitman to take her out, and that's sort of it ends up being a setup, which is what gets him arrested and tried for attempted murder. I mean, there's some of the people on the show were like saying like, "Oh, he was set up, and he was never going to do it anyway." My response to that is like, because I'm sort of somewhere in the middle on that. Because on the one hand, yes, it does seem like a lot of hot air, and like, I'm not sure necessarily to what extent he would have gone through with it if he wasn't directly offered, "Here's a really cheap assassin." Like literally, it was like what a $3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's which someone was commenting, I think on the after show, but somewhere they were saying like that's suspiciously cheap for an assassin.
Yeah.
And shouldn't have fallen for it. So on on the one hand there is like, would he have done it if he wasn't pushed by the sting operation? But on the other hand, he's so unhinged that I think he would have he was clearly thinking about it in great detail.
Yeah.
Like I think it was more than just empty threat.
About the assassin is that originally it was supposed to be $5,000, but Joe Exotic could only give him $3,000, and the hitman still agreed to it, and it's like,
that
was very suspect to me, isn't it? It's like that's why would you do that?
But then of course I don't think Joe Exotic's probably smart enough to really realize. To fact, he's probably he's so clouded with hate for Carol that he's like, whatever, just get her killed. Which I mean, I think the thing is as well, because even if that setup didn't happen and it was a setup, but a setup he was still dumb enough to fall for, even when it was quite obvious, like we were just saying. But I think the thing is he was clearly planning out and snooping out her cycling route. and working out where he'd go to kill her. And I think that does push it into like, he would have done it eventually, kind of thing,
Yeah,
in some
yeah,
fashion. So I think it is fair that that he ended up in jail. I think that was reasonable.
yeah. But also, like, so I've seen a thing. What I want to talk about mostly today. I saw a
Yeah.
review that said that Tiger King is a gross glorification of animal abuse and its abusers. To which I say,
Right.
you have to be an insanely dense motherfucker to believe that. Obviously, I
To
don't think
believe that
it
the show
does.
is glorifying it.
Yeah, well, I don't think it does enough to damn it, but that's a different thing. But it does not glorify it at all. Like, who looks at the abusers, so Joe Exotic, and be's like, yeah, I want to be like him. A man who literally went to jail for 17 counts of animal abuse.
Yeah.
You know, how dense have you got to be to think that that's a glorification at all? You know? And
So one
also, it goes out of its way to show you how unhinged literally every single one of the animal abusers are. And I
So
think,
that's the one thing I'd say is like I wouldn't say it certainly doesn't glorify animal abuse, but I do think it does. As some people have criticised, I don't think it focuses enough on it.
yeah,
Like
well,
it's
that's
quite a
what I
big
say.
subject
Like,
area that
I
sort of
don't,
eschews. Yeah,
yeah, I don't think it does enough to damn it, but that's a different thing. It definitely
yeah,
doesn't glorify it.
no,
Because I think, how can you, but even Jeff Lowe and Doc Antle and the other guy, the one with the monkey, like, these people are all insane. And it's like,
yeah,
that is not a glorification. These people are mad, and it's going out of its way to villainize them and make you want to not be anything like them.
yeah.
Even the
That
supposed good ones like Carol Baskin, it villainizes her a lot as well. And
yeah.
it's like, you don't want to be anything like these people because they're insane. And like, I wouldn't go to any of their zoos because they're all mental. It's like, why would you? It's not a glorification at all.
And talking about Carol Baskin, so I've read another criticism about the show about it's trying to show her on like the same level of sort of just as bad as Joe Exotic and Doc Antle and the rest of them, when actually hers is a sanctuary, which I did comment on last week. But what
Yeah,
this criticism I saw said was basically because the show doesn't clarify enough about what makes her different and why the sanctuary is better. It ignores that in order to fit in with its mission statement of they're all equally mad and as bad as each other. Like, so for example, there's like a lot of people saying like, oh, why can't I release tigers into the wild? Well, there's a specific reason why you can't. It's to do with because they've been crossbred and mutated, specifically for like the parks and stuff.
yeah.
Therefore,
It's
they can't
like,
be
oh,
reintroduced into the wild.
there's 9 subspecies of tiger, and they're all crossbred between the subspecies, which is why you can't release them. It's like, that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
And also,
exactly.
because they're fed at a certain feeding time and they don't hunt. That's another big part of it.
Exactly, yeah. And so like I was saying last week, like, oh, Carol's got this sanctuary, but it seems to operate exactly the same as the rest of the zoos. So how is she any better than them? She's as bad. Because that's basically what the documentary does. It doesn't show that side of it and explain in detail that angle in order to make her look worse. So that's another example of the way it manipulates it.
Yeah.
But I think that is one thing. Of course, to try and get a documentary to not manipulate anything is impossible. But I do
Yes.
wish it did do a lot more background about the tigers. I think that's another general criticism. It's too much on the people, and there's not enough about the tigers themselves and the abuse, which is obviously kind of like should be the main point. You'd think.
Yeah.
Like it's too focused on like, wow, look how crazy these humans are, and in the background there's all these animals suffering. So that
Yes.
is one genuine criticism, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think, so in the after show, the guy with no legs, who I also can't remember the name of,
Yeah.
he pointed out that obviously Joe did a lot of bad stuff, but the documentary didn't show all the good stuff that he had done, and it's like
Right.
it doesn't weigh up both sides. And because the guy with no legs,
Yeah.
he did say like how much good Joe had done. Like I said last week about how he just gave a homeless woman a job and a place to live just out of nowhere.
And there's also,
And
he made that Thanksgiving meal for like 200 people, whatever it was.
yeah, and he did apparently like that wasn't a one-off thing. He did that every year for 15 years or something.
Yeah.
And also like he was like very generous and supporting with all of his people. And you know, he'll hire people who can't be hired anywhere else. He'll give them a chance. You know, there was a lot of positive stuff about him that they don't show, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like, as mad and sort of unhinged as Joe is, he clearly has, like, a heart to him. Like, there's a lot, I think, of a documentary about, like, you know, he seems like a very affectionate person. He seems, you know, he's not a psychopath. He's not heartless. He's very much sort of, even if he is abusing his animals, which, again, isn't shown in enough detail, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, he's clearly, like, at least about humans, he does genuinely have this sort of, he cares for them and he has, like, this real heart for people.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's such a good documentary, but it definitely has an agenda, and I think if you're going to watch it, you have to be very aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it doesn't take away from it, and I think it is just very good. But yeah, so with the more of the like animal abuse, they also don't show why what Joe and Doc Antle is doing is bad. Obviously, they say like, "Oh yeah, it's bad, it's animal abuse," but you don't know why. You don't know what it's doing to like. Obviously, keeping them in a cage
there's
is not good.
Explaining it and like showing it, yeah, and like making the audience feel why it's bad rather than just telling them it is bad. You know, that's filmmaking 101.
Yeah, because there is a bit early on where the guy with the monkey says like a tiger needs like 400 square miles of jungle, and there's no cage big enough for that. And it's like, they should show that, or they should explain more of like what tigers actually need, more of the tiger's natural habitat. They should show more of the of the animals. But obviously, it's not really about the animals at the end of the day, is it? The whole show is more about the people.
I think overall, the tone of the show is much less of an expose, you know, about abuse. It's much more. So it's definitely driven towards entertainment and being like, look how mad these people are. Look at the weird antics they get up to. Like, you know, rather than the sort of arguably much more serious tone it should have about, you know, like about exposing the abuse that's going on. It's much more focused on sort of like the wacky, entertaining side of it.
So that's what I did like on the in the last episode, the political campaign guy, he said, which I thought was very poignant and a very good like last note to leave it on. He said, with all the money Joe spent trying to fight Carol Baskin, with all the money she spent trying to fight Joe, with all the money that the FBI spent on getting Joe to imprison him, doing the sting operation, like these millions and millions of dollars, like how much good that could have done for the tigers, for the like wild tiger population, of like to fight extinction and to fight the pollution. Like, I thought that was a really good, poignant note.
That really sums it up, you know, to sort of almost like the main point to take away from all of it. Yeah, it was very well forced out to the final note. Yeah.
I did really like that. But yeah, I don't know. It was good.
Yeah, it's definitely good. It's definitely it's a flawed documentary, and it clearly had its agenda, and like more obviously than maybe some other documentaries do. If you can get past that, it's definitely there's a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also a lot of, I don't know, like there's so much they leave out, I think. But also I think because again, like I said last time with the timeline, like you don't know when each interview was recorded or whatever. But there's
Mm.
a lot of retroactively changing things, a lot of retconning from the people. So, in one interview they'll say something, realize that makes them look bad, and in their next interview they'll retcon it and say, "Oh, but I actually meant this."
Yeah.
And I feel like that just muddies the water so much, and especially if you look at the after show, how much retconning all of the people do, like every single one of them,
Mm.
because they all suddenly decide in the after show that they all hate Joe Exotic when it's a bit like, so the guy with no legs, um, he, I mean, he had an argument with Jeff Lowe and left. He didn't have an argument with Joe Exotic, but the thing, he was like, "Oh yeah, Joe should be in jail," blah 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 blah, and it's like, well, I mean, this could be the documentary's fault, but it never showed that. It always made it out like you were just his mate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that could be the thing. Like maybe maybe it did go down differently, and the documentary showed it, how it wanted to show, and they're like, right, well, we need to use this opportunity to try and set the record straight.
Also,
Which
yeah,
I
I feel
mean,
like this documentary is a
yeah,
very valid excuse for people like Jeff Lowe and Doc Antle to be like, uh, all of these problems. Oh yeah, they were just Joe's fault, but my thing's
hmm,
normal and fine. When actually,
that's
they're just as dodgy, if not more dodgy than Joe was.
yeah, and of course, because Joe's in prison and they're not, they can sort of say what they want, and because
Yeah.
Joe sort of can't as easily respond, you know,
I also would like to, again, in the after show, the producer guy, the guy who smokes indoors and has the like cowboy hat and is like the
yeah,
graveliest voice as if he'd be eating concrete for the last 40 years.
tasty.
Yeah, that guy. He,
You sure?
in the after show, he said that Joe was actually afraid of tigers.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting revelation. That would have been a great thing to expound upon on the documentary
Well,
if it
yeah,
were
but
true.
exactly. Which that makes me think it's not true, because even his friends, like his closest friends, never said that. And I feel like that's such a massive part of deconstructing the Tiger King. Like, why would they not bring that up? So I just feel
Yeah,
like,
you think that would be like a major point.
yeah,
That's almost like a tagline. The king of tigers, afraid of tigers.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, phrase better than that.
Yeah,
But
but I just feel like that would absolutely have come up if that were true, which makes me think like what other things have just these people made up because they want to make Joe look bad or themselves look better.
you can make a point about Travis as well.
Yeah, well, that's something else. Like, I feel like obviously they never interviewed him, but was he still alive? Because he died in 2018, was it? I think it was 2018 when he killed,
Yeah,
because it was just
something like that.
after Joe had run for president or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, just after Joe had run for the governorship. Um, but by that time the documentary had already started filming.
yeah. They'd already had several years worth of footage in the
Yeah,
can.
which makes me think: did they never interview him, or have they just not showed his interviews? Like,
Like,
why
is that
does he not feature at all? Other than in
like is there
occasional stock, not stock footage, but occasional archive footage, and then it shows you the bit where, he's like, oh yeah, he killed himself. It's like, did he not have anything to say at all about any of this?
The only thing I can wonder is if, out of matter of like taste and respect, whereas like because he shot himself during production, where they're like, oh, it'll be weird to use his, his interviews. But I mean, I can't imagine why
you know, it almost seems weird to erase him from it in that case.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
an
the other
interesting
thing, it's like,
omission.
yeah. Do they not want his voice to be heard at all then, just because he killed himself?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I can't think of any specific like rule against that. I mean, as long as he signed like release forms and stuff before he died, there'd be no reason not to use him.
Yeah.
His visage.
Well, the other thing could be that his family asked them not to put it in.
Maybe.
It's the other thing that I could think of.
I mean, Occam's razor sort of suggests that's probably more likely rather than like some agenda on the documentarian's part.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
I
then
imagine
his
it probably
mum
is
was in
something
it.
like
Like, why would his mum comment but then not want? Especially if it's exposing Joe Exotic, you'd think they'd want him, arguably his closest person, to have a say and to pitch in.
Yeah.
Which does also make me think maybe he only said positive things or said something completely different to what everyone else said, and they had to take it out because it didn't match their narrative.
Their agenda.
Yeah. But then that's just theorizing, isn't it? Because we don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can never truly know for sure.
Yeah.
So we've only got our theories left.
So the other thing I would like, there's a Louis Theroux documentary about Joe Exotic. From
Oh really?
Yes, there is. I think it's from about 2010, 2011 maybe. And I want to watch that because I want to know Louis Theroux's take on it.
Yeah, sort of compare and contrast them.
Because obviously Louis Theroux documentaries are amazing, but he's such a completely different documentarian to the guys that made Tiger King. I want to see if how different it is,
Yeah. It's also Louis Theroux's documentary mode is much different to Tiger King's, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because firstly, Louis Theroux makes a point of being, very much the presenter of his documentaries and being in them and sort of being there asking the questions.
Yes.
While Tiger King doesn't to the same degree.
It's just documentaries are fascinating, aren't they?